I recently posed a question to our text mentorship list and asked what they wish they could ask another successful woman about what it really looks like behind the scenes of her business and her life. And one of the most common questions was this: do you still struggle with imposter syndrome? And if so, how do you overcome it? Well, we are creating an amazing new free resource for all of you that we're gonna have women answer these questions, and I cannot wait to unveil it in just a few weeks. But I thought, since this one was such a popular question, I would give you my personal answer to do I still struggle with imposter syndrome, and also share with you exactly what I do when those feelings show up. Okay, before we get into today's episode, I have something really exciting to share. You have heard me talk about our six-figure school program, and we only open it twice a year. We are opening it for spring very, very soon. You know, podcasts are amazing. You can learn so much from them. If you're like me, you probably binge listen to so many different incredible podcasts. But if you're ready for a step-by-step plan, you're tired of figuring it out all on your own, and you just want someone to take you by the hand and show you exactly how to launch and scale your big idea to your first six figures, then this is for you. You also happen to get the most incredible, badass community of women who are going to support you and hold you accountable. So my favorite thing about the way we've designed Six Figure School is that you have access for the life of the program. So you get to learn and grow at your own pace. There's no such thing as falling behind, and there's really no such thing as joining too early, because no matter if your idea is just the tiny seed of inspiration or you've been at it for a while, you are going to get so much from this program and community that's going to help you go further faster. So if your heart is kind of racing and your palms are getting a little sweaty just hearing me talk about this, then something tells me this might be for you. And if you know you're ready to go all in on your big ideas, here's what I want you to do. The doors won't open for a few more days or weeks, depending on when you're hearing this message, but I want you to text me the word READY, READY, text me the word READY to 602-536-7829. And you're going to get first access to join when we open the doors, plus some exclusive bonuses that no one else is going to get. We only open this program, like I said, twice a year. And once the doors open, they are not open for long. So hit pause right now, send me a quick text. The number is in the show notes, and let's do this. Let's get you on the way to making your big idea a reality. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're gonna dive right into, I would say, one of the most common questions I hear from women in our community and just women in my life. And that is, is there a point that I eventually just won't feel like an imposter when I'm moving forward toward my big ideas? And to be honest, I used to think that at some point I just wouldn't be afraid or wouldn't feel stretched. I wouldn't have this sense of like, well, who am I to do this? I really thought that eventually I would get to this point where I just didn't feel like an imposter anymore. And while the feeling of imposter syndrome, which it's often called, has definitely changed, I feel like an imposter almost always. And I'm going to tell you why my belief around this has totally changed and why I now know that's a good thing. It's not only a good thing, it is the indication that I'm going in the right direction. Now, I know that might be a little tough to hear because it's not fun to feel like you're not qualified or not ready or not enough. No one loves feeling that way. But I'm going to give you some really tangible things that you can do to reframe this feeling when you have it, because you will. If you listen to this podcast and if you're going after really, really big things in this world, you will sometimes feel a little bit out of your league. And I think that's a good thing. But the truth is, we don't have to stay there. We don't have to let that feeling stop us from moving forward in bringing these big ideas to life. So this might sound a little bit radical, but here's what I now believe. And I want you to really hear this. So focus in. If you don't feel at least a little bit like an imposter, if deep down there is no tiny hint of the question, can I really do this, when it comes to your big idea, then you haven't even scratched the surface of what you are actually capable of. I want you just to really let that sink in for a second. If you don't right now feel like an imposter, I would challenge you to dream a little bit bigger until you get to the point that you're like, that? I could never do that. Who, me? No, that's too much. That's actually what you're looking for, is that feeling. Because think about it this way. If right now, what I'm working on, I feel totally confident, I know exactly the next step to take, I know I can do it, then there's actually more in me, more potential. There's something more I could achieve if I stretch myself. So what I used to do in the past is wait for that feeling of comfort, I've got this. I've learned enough. I've listened to enough podcasts. I've practiced enough, and now I've got it. I'm going to look perfect. This is going to go perfectly to plan, and I'm never going to have to feel uncomfortable. When the truth is, for years, when I would pursue that feeling of being comfortable, I wasn't growing. I wasn't really expanding or stepping into my full potential. I was playing at maybe 70%. And it wasn't until I started to lean in to this feeling of, I could never do that. Who am I to do that? Who am I to write a book? Or who am I to start an event or bring women together? It wasn't until I started to tiptoe into the things that felt totally out of my league that I realized, when I was playing small, when I was playing at 70% of my potential, I wasn't even getting close to the good part. I wasn't even having to rely on faith, and I wasn't expecting to receive any miracles because everything was within what I knew I could control. So I know that someone listening today really needs to hear this, that it's time to stop playing small. It's time to realize that feeling deep within you that's questioning, am I the one to do this, is a sign that, hell yes, you are. You're meant to do this. And that leaning into that feeling is the way through. There's no shortcut. There's no such thing as getting around that feeling. You just have to lean into it. So I'm going to give you some of the tangible things that I do when, and I do mean when because it happens all the time, when I feel like an imposter. Because I understand all of this logically, everything I've just been saying, okay, it's a good thing to feel like an imposter, yes. But when you're staring down your own imposter syndrome, it feels freaking uncomfortable. And it's very easy to just choose to go do something else. So I want to share with you the process that I take myself through to get through and keep moving through, not eliminate altogether. I'm not out to eliminate the feeling of imposter syndrome, because that's just not really going to happen if I'm playing big. But what I do to keep moving forward and lean in at the times when I want to pull back. So the first thing is I have to check in and ask myself this question. Okay, Lindsay, you feel like an imposter. You have this really big idea. It seems really scary, but where are you focusing right now? And when I tune in and pay attention to where I'm focusing, what I notice that if I feel stopped by this fear of not being enough or this feeling of imposter syndrome, I'm focusing on me. I'm focusing on the fear of how it's going to look, or what will I feel if I fail, or if this doesn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I'm focusing on myself. When the truth is, the big idea that I have, the thing that's making me feel like an imposter, at the end of the day, it's just not about me. It's 100% about who I will serve in the process. And all I have to do is put my focus back on the people, the women, those of you listening that I want to serve, and ask myself, am I willing to be uncomfortable so that I can make an impact? Am I here to impress people, or am I really here to make an impact? And always, 10 out of 10 times, the answer is, I'm here to make an impact. So refocusing and noticing, well, who am I putting my attention on? Is it the people I want to serve, or is it on myself? That oftentimes is strong enough just to snap me out of it and realize, like, all right, well, if I want to help others get out of their own way, of course I need to feel uncomfortable. Like, of course, I need to be going through this too so that I can relate to the people that I really want to help. Okay, and then the second thing is that reframe, that reminder that this is a sign that I'm growing, that of course I feel like an imposter. I have a really, really big vision. I'm not there yet. I'm not that person yet. And it would be silly for me to expect that I would be. Otherwise, I'd have that result in my life already. So just the reminder that like this feeling that I'm being stretched, like sometimes I literally feel like someone is like stretching me, like I'm made of, I don't know, like I'm thinking of that Nickelodeon goo. Just imagine that, right? So when I feel like I'm being stretched, it's just a sign that I'm growing. It's a sign that I'm stepping beyond what I know myself to be capable of, and I'm about to grow. And that's where, like when I think of the times in the past, and this is really powerful too, once you start to anchor in what happens when you do step beyond that feeling of discomfort, you start to build evidence. So now I have a ton of evidence that every time in the past that I've stepped beyond what I feel afraid of, what makes me uncomfortable, that's where all the good stuff happens. That's where miracles occur, where things that I never even dreamed of having come to fruition in my life happen. And I would have missed all those things had I stayed with my feet planted in my comfort zone. So just that reframe and anchoring in the reminder that when I step past my own fear is where all the best stuff happens. And it gives me kind of like this anticipation of, wow, I wonder what could be on the other side of my fear this time. So I just want you to remember that what stops you often from fully showing up and serving the people that you want to serve is this feeling deep down or this question of like, well, can I really do this? And I just want to remind you that your big vision, your big idea is unique to you. It was given to you for a reason, and it's 100% about who you will serve in the process. But I also want to give you a little bit of tough love and some real talk, because I remember how uncomfortable it was to sit there in my fear. And we always are choosing which discomfort we want to experience. The discomfort of staying the same, and that's freaking uncomfortable. Or the discomfort of the unknown, which means leaning in and sometimes failing forward and growing into the person that you're meant to become. So especially those of you who've been sitting there and maybe you've listened to this podcast for a while and you have a big idea on your heart and you know it's just kind of eating away at you to the point where you can't ignore it anymore. I want to invite you to seriously consider joining us for the next round of Six Figure School. If you've been listening to the podcast, you've heard me talk about it. And the reason being, because for me, my biggest breakthrough around overcoming my own imposter syndrome and actually getting started, like my first big step toward creating everything you see today as Powerhouse Women, came from investing in myself in a program just like this that gave me a step-by-step plan to follow, accountability, like I was so bought in that I wasn't about to quit on myself, and community with other people who were on the journey with me. So you heard it in the beginning of the episode. I'll give you the number again. All you need to do, the doors are going to open really soon. They're not open yet, depending on when you're listening to this. But all you need to do to be the first on our early access list is to text me the word ready, like saying, okay, Lindsay, I am ready. I am going all in. I am scared. I kind of want to puke, but I'm ready. And you text the word ready to 602-536-7829. You're going to be the first to know as soon as the doors open. And you're also going to get some early access bonuses that no one else will get, because I believe in rewarding people for taking action. But whether or not that particular course or opportunity speaks to you, here's what I want you to know: that nothing moves until you do. That if you're trying to logically think your way through imposter syndrome, if you're trying to learn enough until, just to make you feel like you're ready and you can finally go after it, you are definitely gonna miss the opportunity to impact some of the people you're meant to impact. And I know that the reason you have this big vision on your heart is to impact others. So just remember, we say it all the time, but I'm gonna remind you again, that you are just not meant to do business or big visions or life alone.